There are strange things that can happen right inside the home you live in the neighborhood you trust to be safe, or even in a workplace you thought was just a place to make a living. But then at some point, you start hearing footsteps with no source, or feel eyes watching you from the dark, and you realize you are not alone. Tonight I'll be sharing 3 true stories. 3 accounts from people who came face to face with something they couldn't name, but could never forget. And if you're listening to these stories around midnight, make sure your doors are locked. Story 1. Cosmo and the Thing in the Basement. When I was little, I always believed Cosmo, our old family cat, could sense things humans couldn't. Cosmo was easygoing smart and had the habit of sleeping in the basement for over a decade. Every night, like a ritual, someone in the house would carry him down the stairs, close the door, and leave him to rest in the quietest and most spacious room in the house. But about 3 weeks ago, Cosmo started acting strange. The first night when I placed him at the top of the stairs as usual, instead of heading down, he just stood still. The fur along his spine bristled, his eyes wide open, staring intently into the darkness below. Then he hissed, a sound I had never heard from him before. It wasn't a lazy meow or a beg for food. It was a deep, guttural growl, the kind an animal makes when it feels threatened. I thought he was just being a little sensitive. But as I turned around to grab a glass of water, I heard scratching, light claws scraping the door behind me. I opened it, and Cosmo darted into the living room like he was running from something. I checked the basement. Everything looked normal. At least, on the surface. Over the next 3 nights, Cosmo's behavior became even more bizarre. He refused to go near the basement. At night, he would sit by the door wailing like he was in pain. One night, I saw him sitting stiffly on the doormat by the basement door, eyes locked onto the shut hatch. When I picked him up, his body was rigid, ears pinned back, eyes constantly shifting behind me. I began letting him sleep in my room. At that time, I didn't think much of the subtle things, the faint rattling of the basement door at night, or the fleeting shadows in the hallway when I'd half wake from sleep. A week later, my dad discovered the basement was infested with fleas. We cleaned everything thoroughly, sprayed, washed, vacuumed. He even locked the door, saying we'd wait a few days for the bugs to die off. I thought things would settle down, until I decided to check the basement again. The moment I stepped down, I knew something was off. The air was thick, damp, and it reeked. A strange, indescribable smell. Sweet, rancid, like rotting meat. The kind that makes your face twist from the first breath. I followed it down the hall to the storage room at the far end. The door creaked open slowly. I nearly gagged. The stench of decay and death filled the air. I aimed my flashlight into the back corner. There was a crawl space, a small opening connected to the house's plumbing. The beam only reached a few feet before being swallowed by pitch black. I was about to go grab a bigger flashlight when I heard breathing. Slow, rhythmic, drawn out. I froze. The breathing wasn't mine. It came from the darkness within the crawl space. 1, 2, 3 seconds later, the breathing quickened. And then I saw them, a pair of eyes reflecting the flashlight, staring at me from the void. A dark figure lunged forward. I only caught a glimpse. A pale skeletal arm with black claws stretched out, swiping at the space where I had just stood. I screamed and ran, heart pounding like it would explode. I locked the basement door and called the police. They came, searched everything, and found signs that someone had been living in the crawl space. Old blankets, food wrappers, empty chip bags, soda cans. But no person. The exit door at the back of the house had been left open. The police said it was likely a homeless person who snuck in for shelter. But I know better. Cosmo has never gone near the basement again. And last night I heard scratching, faint, steady, like someone patiently waiting for me to open the door. Story 2. The mask on my bed. Some childhood memories seem harmless, until you realize they didn't end the way you thought. I used to think that Halloween night was the most unforgettable night of my childhood, and it was just not in the way I'd hoped. Every year, my family would host a haunted house in our basement to collect canned goods for charity. The neighborhood kids loved it, and my parents saw it as a way to do something good. The year I turned 7, everything went as usual. Flickering lights, fake cobwebs, recorded screams, and my older cousins dressed up to scare the kids. There was just one strange thing. Before the event started, a middle-aged man showed up. He wasn't with anyone, just carrying a few cans and saying his wife and daughter would come later. He handed over the food, stood silently at the top of the stairs, smiling faintly, at no one in particular, then walked away. Or at least, we thought he did. Everything was fine until one little girl ran screaming up from the basement. Her face was pale, hands trembling. She said a man in a white mask, unlike the others, had grabbed her and pulled her into a dark room. He didn't speak, just breathed heavily, and his body reeked so badly it made her want to vomit. I ran to find my parents. When they checked, they discovered something odd. One of my cousins, Eric, had lost his mask. He said he left his post for a few minutes to use the restroom, and when he came back, the mask was gone. No one in the group admitted to scaring the girl. My parents immediately shut the haunted house down and called the police. They found nothing suspicious in the house. No signs of a break-in, no strangers, nothing. Until that night. Around midnight, I heard tapping on my window, soft, rhythmic. I thought I was dreaming, but the sound didn't stop. Then, it turned into scratching. Long strokes like nails dragging across glass. I pulled the blanket over my head, my heart thudding so loud it echoed in my ears. Then I found the courage to get up and pull back the curtain. A face, pressed against the glass. A plain, expressionless white mask. Behind the window were unmoving dark eyes. He didn't move, didn't tap anymore. Just stood there. I screamed. My parents burst in. But when they looked, he was gone. No trace, no footprints, nothing. Months passed. I thought it was all behind me. But one day coming home from school, I found something lying neatly on my bed. A white mask. Not new. It was the same one. Worn slightly dirty, smudged with faint fingerprints. And written on the forehead in messy black marker was my name. The police couldn't do anything beyond filing a report. My family added security, installed cameras, locked every window. But I knew what happened wasn't a prank, nor a child's imagination. I've since moved away, but sometimes around 2 a.m., I still hear faint knocking on the glass. And some nights I wake up with the feeling that someone is standing outside waiting for me to draw the curtain back. One more time. Story 3. Carlos's basement. I used to work at a small Mexican restaurant in a not-so-safe neighborhood. I was broke back then, too broke to ask for much, not about the pay, the hours, or even my own safety. But what I discovered there made me run and never look back. My manager, Carlos, was the kind of guy who made you feel unsafe, even when he smiled. There was something fake in his every gesture. But I had no other options. It all started with strange noises. Every time I worked the night shift after the place had quieted down, I'd hear faint knocking and dragging sounds from beneath the kitchen floor. Like someone, or something, was moving underneath me. I asked Carlos. He shrugged. This place doesn't have a basement. But I had seen the half windows along the back of the building. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I bent down to peek into one of those rear windows. Pitch black. I turned on my phone's flashlight. and suddenly the light in the basement flashed on, then off. My heart pounded. I got back in my car trying to convince myself I imagined it, but I knew something was off. The next time I returned, and this time, I saw his face. A filthy man, tangled hair, wild animal-like eyes. He slammed his forehead against the glass, leaving a smear of blood and condensation. I ran, nearly collapsing, trying to unlock my car. I confronted Carlos. He sighed, sat down, and confessed, "That's my brother. He's mentally ill. I can't leave him on the streets. I keep him hidden in the basement." He begged me to stay silent, and I did, because I needed the money. Until one night, I had just locked up heading to my car when I saw a figure standing in the bushes by the parking lot. I pretended not to notice, but I heard footsteps behind me, limping, but fast, too fast. I unlocked the car just in time. He slammed his face against the window, screaming like an animal, blood dripping from his forehead down to his chin. He pounded both fists against the glass eyes, bulging, and then went still. I floored the gas pedal and fled like a madman. I never went back. Never asked about Carlos. Never cared if the restaurant still existed. But sometimes when I step out of my apartment, I still see his eyes, those pale yellow eyes, in the back of my mind. And I wonder if he ever found me. Would I be fast enough to escape next time? 3 stories. 3 knocks in the night. Sometimes horror doesn't come from ghosts or legends, but from the people living just beneath us, watching us every day. If you've ever experienced something similar, a faceless shadow, a noise from an empty room, or an item suddenly appearing with your name written on it, share your story in the comments. You might not be the only one. Thanks for listening till the end. If you got chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories. See you again in the dark.